Jon Lawrence with Raider Boats here, and we're at the Spokane Boat Show, just finishing setup here. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time for this video and scanning that QR code and joining us to we're going to walk you through the top 10 reasons that make this Raider Pro Fish best in class. We're going to start with number 1. Number 1 on this list is bow shear. You're going to hear me talk about this quite often if you follow the videos, but one thing that's unique, and bow shear starts back here, so you got a straight planing line on the gunnel that it moves forward, and as you come to the front of the cabin, you start seeing it's climbing. You can probably get a profile, I don't know if it's easy to see in the camera, but just follow my head, my pretty little head here, and just follow, and you can see how it's climbing, and it's raising up above my head at height. And so it gets quite a bit taller than me, the same height. This isn't the trailer jacked up to the moon, but that bow shear is going to give you a much higher presentation. And where that's important is not when you're on plane. When you're on plane underway, you can manipulate the bow. You can run this boat at 70% trim if you wanted to and really manipulate that bow up as much as you want, or you can bury it down by trimming negative. But where it comes imperative is when you slow the boat down in really rough water where you're not on plane. Most boats, they want to nose down in the front. Our design from our offshore bracket forward into the V of the hull carry further forward, the shoulders being a little more presented, giving us more buoyancy forward, means you're gonna have a very level stance in plane at low speeds. But the other part is when you get into that big following sea, or even a big head sea, big wind waves, for instance, having as high of a bow as possible is gonna prevent water from going over top of that bow and filling up that bow area. And so it's gonna be way better safety protection. That all starts with a much higher bow. And we do that by adding bow shear. So that was number 1, we're moving on to number 2. Number 2 leads us into plate thickness. This is super important and it is commonly overlooked. If even down to our 21 foot, so I'll go there. Our 21 foot Delta, our smallest boat we build it with a 1/4 inch bottom and 160 side sheets. Industry standard on that boat is gonna be a 190 bottom and 125 side sheet. Doesn't sound like a big difference, but it's really big. And there's a couple things that play into that. I'm gonna grab some plate and I'm gonna show you here, 1 second. All right, so number 2 is something that is really important and commonly overlooked at, plate thickness. I've got these plates here to really give you a visual on the thickness of plate. This 22 foot ProFisherman, and this is really true with all of our hardtops, so 21 foot all the way up to 290 Sea Raider, is all built with a 1/4 inch bottom. That is a 1/4 inch bottom. This right here is 190. I'm gonna come up close. You can see the difference in plate thickness. You can see it there. And that top piece is 190, the bottom piece is 1/4 inch. You're gonna get so much more rigidity out of a 1/4 inch plate. It is stronger, it is stiffer, it is heavier. All those things are super positive for a big boat water ride, big water boat ride, and something that can handle bigger water. Weight is not thought about very often. In fact, in aluminum boats, one of the big things that everybody preached about was their lighter weight, better fuel economy. You're talking 500 pound difference in weight is marginal in fuel economy. And so a lighter boat doesn't present you that great a fuel economy. Maybe 0.1 miles to the gallon. We can get egregious and say 0.2. That's not much. All these boats are gonna be very comparable in fuel economy. It's gonna boil down to more of your prop than honestly it's gonna boil down to the weight of the boat. Hull design is gonna increase different drags, but weight is a small factor in that fuel economy zone. Weight is a huge factor in ride quality. Think of physics. You've got a buoyant force that you're trying to overcome in the ocean, and all you've got really working for you is kinetic energy and deflection. So the V of your hull is gonna deflect the water and ease the resistance into that swell, but the mass and the speed that you're traveling are the two things that have power pushing into that water. And so mass and acceleration is where you're getting an immense amount of force that you're carrying in that boat, and you're building up some kinetic energy, and that boils down to the weight, the mass behind the boat. Next is the side sheets. And so common industry standard is 0.125, which is this plate right here. If you can see it, this is 0.160. So I'm kind of going off course here a little bit. I don't know if you can see that very well, but that 160 is on top right here. It's not dramatically more, but it makes a massive difference. And the reason why this is really important leads me into our next reason, our number 3, but I'm gonna stick to this for a second longer. The rigidity and stiffness you get out of the side sheets is really important. It's gonna make the boat feel a lot more solid and sound. And again, it's weight. You got more weight behind the boat. It's gonna give you more punch through a swell, and it's gonna keep you from having so much bow rise as well. But the biggest factor in why this 160 is such a cool thing is weld out. And that gets me to number 3, extrusion weld out. So this is called a gunnel extrusion, and this down here is called a chine extrusion. What that is a extruded piece of aluminum that has a slot. So I'm going to speak about the chine extrusion. It basically is kind of an L bracket with a shaft that comes up the center and almost looks like an anchor. And that creates a slot on this side so the side sheet can slide down into it, and it creates a slot, actually kind of angled downward, where the bottom plate can come into it here. And so as the bottom plate is inserted and the side sheet is inserted, every manufacturer is going to weld on the interior of that on the top and bottom. And that weldment is perfectly sound. That gives you all the strength you need, that seals it up, that is all you need to do for it to be built well. Where we take it a next step further is by sealing the outside crevice. And so with aluminum boats, there's a lot of things that try to make it scary. It's more of just knowing what the problems are and preventing them. Corrosion's one of them. I have zero concerns with corrosion on my boats because I do preventative measures to take care of it. That includes anodes, that includes just washing it down and keeping salt off of it. And if I'm gonna moor it for long periods of time consistently, then bottom paint. There's things that are gonna prevent that, but that's true with fiberglass boats just like it is for aluminum. Proper electrical system, maintenance, checking in, your electrical system, making sure nothing's come loose. All those things are gonna be really good preventative features. But when you get into crevices where salt water can sit and fester between two gaps in aluminum, that is called crevice corrosion. That is super preventable in the build process. There's nothing you can really do about it after the fact. And so if you buy a boat that has an open chine, it just has an open chine. That's all you can do about it. If you got salt water that can sit in there, just getting fresh water in there, salt away, whatever you can to get it out is gonna be the way to go. We just prevent that altogether by welding it out. You can't weld it out if you're running 125 side sheet. So we talked about the industry standard is 125 on a 22-foot style boat like this. We're running 160. That extra thickness in plate gives you so much rigidity that allows us to run that upper weld bead, which keeps you protection here, and then this lower weld bead that gives you protection down below. There's so much heat that's created in that weld process. If you had 125 sides on this, all that weld work that happens is creating so much heat, so much contraction and shrinkage to the metal, and it does what's called oil canning. You walk the shows, go take a look around, you're gonna see a lot of oil canning in some aluminum boats where you see a little bit of movement at the side sheet. That's very normal. It's gonna be worse on thinner aluminum, particularly with more weld outs. So most of the brands will avoid that completely. That also leads us to be able to do this thing right here. This thing is pretty cool. This is a fully welded logo. This is why you're gonna see most manufacturers doing a sticker. They stick it on the side of the boat. Even if they have a metal logo, they're gonna stick it on the side of the boat, or they're gonna plug weld it from the backside. We do a welded bead all the way on the outside. We dime stack this all the way around the perimeter. That creates an immense amount of heat all in this area, but the sides still stay straight because we're running the thicker plate thickness that's gonna handle all that weld work. Also, if you look at a lot of our boats, this one doesn't have it. We do a single welded rub rail or dual welded rub rails down the side. That's also more heat, and that plate thickness can take it and can handle it. And you look at a lot of our competitors and a lot of boats on the market, look at their offshore products. You're gonna find our offshores in our 26 to 30 foot offshore. It's a 190 side sheet. Most of them are running 160 on those offshores. And so that just shows you how strong that is and how tough that is, but they're doing that on their offshores because they need more ability to handle that heat and a little more thickness in it. And so we're skipping all that. We're looking for weight. We're looking for quality. We're looking for something that's gonna be really tough, robust. It's gonna last you a super long time. Our concern is not necessarily that it looks good on the showroom floor. That's a huge concern to us. Our concern is that it continues to look good for years to come. And that's why we do a lot of these things. This allows us to paint the lower chine. We use all grip paint, which is extremely high-end yacht paint. If you type in allgrip.com, you're gonna see boats. You're not gonna see cars, you're not gonna see motorcycles, you're not gonna see anything else. You're gonna see boats. Specific marine paint, specifically designed for aluminum boats is what we use. That is painted down to the chine. If you don't have that weld on the bottom side, that crevice point will cause a corrosion point that will start festering on the aluminum on the bottom side and will start bringing that paint and lifting it off. So you can avoid that by not painting the lower side, but then you get oxidation on the aluminum. It just doesn't look as good. This looks really good, and it'll look good for a very long time because we do that weld out. Also seals it up better, prevents any potential for leaks, and really and truly it is more robust. It is a stronger welded joint, but to be frank, it's not going to give you strength that you're ever going to really utilize. It's just overbuilding it in that, but really it's overbuilding it for a longevity sense, for the quality to last for you, and that's super important. Number 4, and that brings us into welded through holes. This guy right here, this hole is one through hole weld out. It's down low. Some people have kind of commented like, oh, why isn't it up top? Because everybody else puts it up top. That's fine, they can put it up top, but you're gonna see up top, all of those through holes are typically plastic or Marlon, or they look stainless steel, but typically on an aluminum boat, they're gonna be plastic with like a chrome bezel over the top of it to give it that stainless look. Those are weak, they crack easily, and they fatigue. Above the waterline, not really a big deal. To be frank, it really is just protecting your paint. So the fewer holes you have in the boat, the fewer mechanical connection points, it's just gonna make your boat last longer and look better. So if you can weld things in, weld them in. This is a welded aluminum boat. You should weld it. Get rid of rivets, get rid of screws, weld things down. That's what you're buying. And that's what this is. And so on the inside, this item right here doesn't seem like much, or maybe it's quite a bit, but from the hole on the outside of the boat to this is what you don't see unless you open up the hatch on the inside. This pipe on the outside here is welded to the side sheet of the boat. This is your outlet hole. Inside the boat is the rest of this box. And what's important about this is you got 3 outlets here. One, this is your fish box. You flip on your fish box pump. It's a diaphragm pump inside your fish box. All your water is going to expel through here. It's going to come out. There's an angled slope. When this gets welded in, it's actually down at an angle, protrudes out, and it's got a downward slope. So it's all going to run out the side of the boat. Then up here, these 2 added ports, every single boat we build has a minimum of 2 bilge pumps. And so 21 foot, Delta, the ProFish series, both of them run 2 bilge pumps. You have one in the offshore bracket, which is in the sealed chamber. We'll get to that here in a minute. This one is in the main hole. So you have 2 bilge pumps. You got redundancy. You have redundancy and flotation as well. But both of those bilge pumps, the reason why this is lower, like I said, some people kind of comment why it's a little bit lower. The reason why it's we try to keep it as low as we can. It's not every boat that we can be consistent, but this allows your hoses to come in from your bilge pumps and high loop in and come drop down into it. What's important to that, if you just ran hoses to this on the side, as this fills, it can backflow into the boat. So by coming up and high looping in, dropping in from the top, keeps this from actually backflowing into the boat, and it really keeps everything dry. And it keeps water going outside the boat. So this is the welded through on the outside of the boat. I'm gonna show you what's on the bottom of the boat. This guy right here, what I have affectionately called the rocket. You can see this is 1/4 inch plate. This is the same plate thickness as the whole bottom. This is called a doubler plate. We take this and we weld the hole in the bottom of your boat. This sits out a 1/4 inch because you got 1/4 inch hole bottom, and it sticks through the bottom of the boat. And then we weld this pipe, which is Schedule 80, 1/4 inch thick wall thickness. So it's a heavy aluminum pipe. We weld that on the bottom edge of the aluminum on the whole plate. And then this is on the inside. And so now it's fully welded down here. On the inside, we weld the perimeter of this plate to lock that down in place. This pipe is clearly obviously welded here. You got all these gussets that give it the basis of the rocket. This thing is so stinking stout, you're never gonna do anything to it. This is below the water line. That is why we take every opportunity we can to make this as robust as possible. Most of your washdown pumps are going to come off the back of the transom of the boat. It's going to be a plastic through hole with a little screen. You're going to walk around the show. If you're at a trade show and you're seeing this, you're going to look at the offshore brackets, you're going to see this little screen thing that looks like a dome. That's your washdown pump. If you hit a deadhead or you hit a stick or you hit something on that, the chances of it breaking is very high. It has broken on me. I have broken one of those through holes. It cracked, it started leaking. I was taking on water. That led me to really wanting to do one of these things. This is so robust. We actually screw, this is all threaded up top. We screw a stainless steel shutoff valve on top of this. If you climb inside one of the boats, you can look in the bilge and see what that is, and you can operate it. But that allows you, if you leave the boat moored in a marina for long periods of time, you're going away on vacation, the biggest fail point in boats that are moored is typically a through hole intake. And so a hose fatigues, it comes loose, whatever happens, you got a shutoff valve that you can shut it off at the through hole point, and now you're not having to worry about a hose, a soft connection. And so that gives you ultimate protection. This is not something you're gonna see in any other production boat anywhere at any show. This is an earmark. This isn't a 21-foot pilot house boat that we build. The smallest boat we build has this guy in it. We're talking about the ProFish, which also has this in it. So this is your welded standpipe. If this is not an earmark of really us taking this to the extreme of building you the toughest boat you can possibly have. I don't know what else will be. But that leads us to this is not just a welded hole in the bottom of your boat. This gets this on top of it. This is called a scoop strain. If you look here, it's got an indentation here that gives you a curve. And then on the bottom side, it's like a grate. And so when that's welded on the boat and you're running underway going forward, water is being forced inside that grate, and that upward scoop is forcing water into your intake. So if you want to run a bait tank, which we do on our boats, so one of the unique things we have is the option for like a transom bait tank, not a live well. If somebody's telling you that you want to run anchovies and you can run a live well in your transom, you cannot. Don't fall for it. I've had calls with people that have been frustrated thinking the live well will handle anchovies. You need a bait tank. You need recirculating intake of water. You need flow. That's what these things are about. But also, if you just run a wash down pump and you don't really care about a live well or run a live bait, this is awesome. While you're underway, it's going to supply you actually more flow. So our wash down pump, I don't know what the gallon per hour pump rate is, but it's 5.2 or whatever your pump supplies you. When you're underway, it's now getting really a high speed force. So you go from what the pump can produce to an extra shot of a little bit more power. And so you get a little bit of a pressure washer when you're washing your deck with this thing in place. This is on every single boat. This is super cool. Not very it's heavily looked over. And but this is welded in place. That really protects that through hole as well, but it gives you ultimate water intake. So now we're on to number 5. All right, number 5, offshore bracket. You're gonna see a bunch of different designs. Without a really good way to describe it, I'm gonna kind of describe it vocally. I don't have a whole lot of options to show you here. But you have a couple different designs. One is a cantilever bracket. You're gonna see an offshore bracket that is a pod that actually comes up off the whole bottom of the boat. It comes up at an angle and raises up, and the motor gets mounted on that. It's not a whole extension, it is a cantilever bracket. That is giving you a minimal amount of buoyancy. And what's happening is the weight of the outboard, these outboards are heavy. This 250 Honda weighs over 600 pounds. So if you got a 200 Honda on the back of a cantilever bracket, you're using all that 200 pounds. Think of like you're trying to bust a piece of hardware free and it's seized in place. You're gonna probably grab a piece of pipe or something on the end of a wrench and you're gonna pull down on it. The longer the wrench, it's called a breaker bar. The longer that wrench is, the more you're gonna use leverage to be able to manipulate that piece of hardware. Same is true on a boat. Although you're not trying to loosen up a piece of hardware, you're manipulating that boat and the angle of the boat. So a cantilever bracket is actually designed with a boat that doesn't have very much entry or a very deep of a forefront. So it's wanting to kind of naturally toe in, nose down. Rather than changing the nose design, you add a cantilever bracket, then uses the outboard weight and it brings the nose up, so then it's gonna run more even and square off that cantilever bracket. It doesn't give you a whole extension. It doesn't give you any added buoyancy. Number 2 that you're gonna see is a whole extension that's fairly narrow. So, excuse me, typically the narrowest you're gonna see is in that 24-inch range. It's just enough to mount an outboard on the back of it. That's gonna give you some buoyancy. The hole is gonna extend all the way back, so you got full clean running surface. It's gonna be cleaner water to the prop. It's gonna back up a little bit better. It's gonna be a step in the right direction. As you go wider, there's some manufacturers that keep stretching it wider and wider. And as you go wider, you're creating more stern buoyancy, which I talked about on another video. But stern buoyancy is gonna force your nose down, kind of like the cantilever bracket we talked about. So you have to accommodate at the bow, you have to accommodate a deeper entry, more shoulders and more buoyancy in the front. So it's gonna give you more of an offshore style V in the front of the boat to counter the weight that you're adding or the buoyancy you're adding in the stern. And so the wider your offshore bracket, the more stern buoyancy you're gonna give yourself. And so you gotta counter that. And so that's what you're getting here. We do full width, which allows us to run big V6 engines, and it allows us to give maximum buoyancy on the back end. When you throttle up and you punch the throttle underway, a lot of boats, they rear up on end and they fall on plane. Not that dramatic, but you're gonna get a lot of bow rise out of it and they fall down on plane. What you're gonna find with the Raiders, because we have so much stern buoyancy, as it wants to rear up, that's gonna actually convert that force that's happening into a propulsion going forward. So you're gonna get on plane quicker, it's gonna stay more level, you're not gonna lose any line of sight, you're gonna have great visibility, and it's just gonna work out really well. The other thing with this offshore bracket that's super unique, and you can kind of see this width, it's all the way on the outside. We do this little wing here, and we trim it for spray, but it's really wide. It's as wide as you're gonna find on the market. But we do this, and it's a fully chambered offshore bracket. So you get, on the ProFish, you get about 1,600 pounds of buoyancy created in this offshore bracket, which is gonna give you maximum stern flotation, but it's really a safety thing. One of the more common things that happens on a boat with leak or water intrusion is not at a welded joint. That can happen, but that's pretty rare. It's typically your engine bolts. Over time, all of that fatigue vibration and just can work some sealant free. And so if you get a leak on your boat at an engine bolt, it's going to maintain it only in your offshore bracket. You're going to be able to identify my leak is in my offshore bracket. That's what I need repaired and fixed. And then it really allows you a targeted point. It doesn't, it hones in what the problem could be, but it's also a safety thing. If you did have water coming in or torrential rainstorm that you left the boat out in, it's going to keep your stern afloat and really allow you more time to get to your boat, get batteries plugged in, and start pumping any water out. So it's a protection, a safety precaution that we do, and we really love it. That's our offshore bracket, and that's what's unique about this one. So now we're on to number 6. Quality is about time. It's not about showing it to you now and it looking good. It's about how can we maintain that quality look. That's why we went into jumping into what's called bright dipped anodized. So if you look at a lot of these railings and these rocket launchers up top, these things are gorgeous. You're gonna see a mirror type shine and a high level polish, but it's not just a polish. You can do that with a mother's polish or a white lightning or just any polish, honestly, in a Scotch-Brite pad, some Windex and steel wool, to be frank. That'll polish the stuff up really well too. But it's a lot of labor and it takes a lot of time to do that. And so if you're buying a boat that's got a polished finished package, you're going to be maintaining it about 3 months in salt water. It's going to oxidize and it's going to look chalky. It's going to look really not nearly as nice as when you bought it. Anodized finish micro polishes it. This is a bright dipped anodized. So it's a micro polish with a hard, clear anodized layer. That anodizing is going to protect it from any alkaline environment, going to protect it from any road de-ice or anything that's going to oxidize your aluminum. And so it's going to maintain a mirror-like shine for such a long period of time. Also, it's welded. Nothing's bolted in place. This is fully welded in place. So you're not dealing with any hardware that's going to come loose, causing corrosion, any of that stuff. This is stuff that's welded. You're buying a welded aluminum boat. I keep saying this. Weld things down. Stop bolting them in place. Some things need screws, but we are trying at Raider to get through to as few pieces of hardware as possible. It takes more to weld it. You have to engineer the quality into it so it's not going to fatigue. You're not going to have broken weld points, but you're going to have a product that's going to last so much longer. One of those simple things, one of the easiest things you can do is railing. Don't bolt your rails on. Stay away from that. Getting that bright, shiny, beautiful finish on an aluminum boat should be aluminum. Best way to do it is through anodized. We spent 2 years doing this, and we know you're gonna love it. All right, now we're to number 7, transom doors. So this back wall is all aluminum. Used to be in Raider. We bought the company in 2018. We've really revamped a bunch of stuff, and it's been a process, but in the past, that was kind of a vinyl over wood finish, and it's been something we've been working on for a few years to really fine tune it. This happened here a year or so ago, 2 years ago. And you still see a lot of boats out there that have that plywood in vinyl over it. And it's an easy, quick way to do it. It takes a lot of design work to get it where you can weld a plate in consistently. But that's not what we're really about. Not necessarily this plate being the big thing. That is a nice thing, but these doors. This is all starboard material. Easy latch system, very high quality latch. All your hardware, this is King starboard material. All of these hatch accesses, you have fully isolated hardware. I just talked about welding everything you can. Having stainless fasteners directly against the aluminum is really not a good thing. Sometimes you can't get by without it. You're gonna find a lot of builders, they do a starboard insert door like this, and they have metal framework, or they have some sort of an inset, and they have metal aluminum framework. Typically it's not even painted, it's just brushed, and then it's sandwiched against the painted aluminum, and it's screwed directly in place. That is a corrosion point that causes a problem. This is isolated with starboard material. It's not going to cause any corrosion. It's got a sealant around the backside as well. And so just a much higher quality product, gives you a great finish level. This stuff looks beautiful and we're really happy with it. Number 8, welded overhang. On all of our boats, we have this what we call the aft brow or welded overhang. This is a 20-inch overhang. We really liked how this turned out. I'm standing behind the seat box right here. And so if I were to be fishing on the back deck trying to get out of the weather, this is exactly where I'd be standing. I got a great grab handle with the trim rail on the outside that's anodized. But now I'm out of the weather. I'm out of the sun, I'm out of the rain, I'm out of whatever's going on. Here the other week, it was out of the snow. This gives you protection from the weather, keeps you kind of inside of a cabin environment without being inside the cabin. So if I had a bulkhead, I'd be leaning up against a bulkhead right now and it'd be also comfortable. But this is an open back, which I love on these smaller boats. We do bulkheads on all of them, so that's not a problem. But these open backs are pretty cool. I can sit here when I'm trolling, and I can see everything, and I'm comfortable. I'm underneath the cabin overhang. I've got weather protection, but I got great visibility. The other part too is maybe I'm wanting to sit up here, or maybe you're just a passenger on the boat, and you're wanting to kind of sit back and fish. This is a comfortable way to sit. You're watching everything. Somebody could be standing on the back deck. I'm typically the guy on the back deck, and I'm fishing like crazy. So I'm out in the weather, I'm out on the back deck, but I still want to converse and hang out with the people inside. So I love this inside the cabin, open back setup, but this overhang allows people, if you got a bulkhead or if you're sitting there, a little bit more sunshade, a little bit more rain cover, a little bit more protection. This is a great feature. We absolutely love it. Number 9, back to this guy here, 2 bilge pumps. You're gonna see on these sizes of boats, typically it's only 1 bilge pump. You have an option for 2 you can add. This is standard, 2 bilge pumps, 2 inlets. You have 1 for the main hull, 1 for the offshore bracket. And so you got redundancy built into that system. It's a great system, but again, 2 bilge pumps. That's gonna be unique for this model too. Number 10, our dual battery management system, dual bank management system, to be precise. The number of batteries you have on a boat should always be 2. But more importantly, you should isolate the banks of your batteries fully. Really commonly in the industry, you're gonna see a standard switch, which is 1, 2, all and off. It's just a basic switch that you either combine them all, you turn your house, or you turn your starting battery, or you have them all off. Or they just combine. You shut it off and you turn it on, and everything communicates and everything talks. This is an on and off switch, but it isolates everything through 2 different banks. You have a house bank and a starting bank. It is really important that your engine, your main engine, comes into its starting bank and has its own isolated battery on the starting bank. Then your house side has its own isolated battery on the house side. So all your electronics, your downriggers, your Garmin system, whatever you're running is pulling off of your house system and your house system only. It's not pulling from your engine system. Additionally to that, we're also running in this system, we run an ACR, which is automatic charging relay. It's a little black box, yellow band on the front. And what that's doing is it's sensing the amount of voltage on your starting side. So as a 12 volt system, anything over 12 volts, it's gonna say, hey, we have all the power we need. It'll charge you, I mean, you can charge those batteries up to like 14.1, 14.2 volts, but then you start having issues on your house side if you go that high. But your alternator on your outboards will keep up and keeping that surface charge on the top. And if your house side starts waning down, so let's say you're at 12.4 volts on your engine start side, and all of a sudden your house side's starting to degrade and you're down to 10.9 volts. That ACR is gonna sense the voltage drop on your house side, divert the charge from your outboard to your house battery, and bring that charge back over 12 volts. It's gonna do that while also monitoring your engine start side and never starving your engine start side to where you're going and dropping into a lower voltage point and potentially causing you some engine issues. And so it's protecting you on both sides. That circumvents your battery system, so it allows both banks to be fully independent, yet still have the opportunity for charge. One thing that I like to point out is if you have a dual battery system on your boat and you run your outboard all the time, that's great, you're gonna keep a charge on it, but understand that you're only providing a surface charge. Make sure you get a battery tender, make sure you plug it in 110 outlet at the dock or at your house, and make sure that you are getting a charge to those batteries that give it a really deep, robust charge. If you're just using your outboard, you're just doing a surface charge. The other thing with the system that kind of jumps into play is I'm not a fan of spade fuses. I'm not a fan of glass fuses. I'm trying to get away from them more and more. And it is a process. It's been years in the making, more and more. But part of that was this battery system design. We designed this here a few years ago, and we've been slowly integrating it into our entire lineup. And now it's across the board. We do the same battery system on our smallest boat. And then the bigger boats, typically they're all twin engines, so we do a triple bank. But it's the same design. It just has 3 banks. 2 start banks for your engines and 1 house bank. None of this has to do with how many batteries. So a dual bank management system like this boat has nothing to do with, 2 batteries. What it has to do with, you have 2 banks. You can have 60 batteries if you wanted to. Nobody would. There's not enough room. But adding a second battery to your house side is not a problem. Adding a third battery to your house side, not a problem. You just got to make sure that you are keeping it as a 12 volt system and not increasing the voltage into a 12 or 24 or 36 volt system. But you can add as many batteries as you want. But back to the fuses, we try to get rid of as many of them as we can. And so all these downriggers you see on here, we wire them into breakers. And so those are available slots. This is up to the dealer. You can choose to have this done or not, but this is the available slots on this panel. And so as Rosario dips in closer, he's already done it. You're gonna see these breakers. You're gonna see breakers for trim tabs, for your bilge pumps. You're gonna also see breakers for the downriggers. You're gonna see added breaker slots that are not taken advantage of. And that you pop that little closeout piece out and you drop in a breaker of the size you need for whatever the application is. That's gonna give you something that with like electric reels for Tanakin Bull 750s. Let's say you're deep drop fishing for halibut and you're dropping off the edge of a canyon, you're in 800 feet of water. Seems crazy to people. I know a lot of people that don't fish over 200 feet for halibut. But here in Washington, we have the joys of lots of deep water. And so we run Tanakin 750s or 800s now, and you're running the same Scotty or Cannon plug. if that starts tripping and you're trying to reel up from 900 feet and you got to manually crank, that kind of sucks. And so keeping it where you got a breaker, you just push start, that's going to save the whole system. But a lot of these electric motors, like your downriggers or a pot puller, if you add it, it doesn't know the availability of how many amps your fuse is set up. So it will continue to pull whatever load is in front of it as long as it has the power supply. Your breaker or your fuses protects the wire. It doesn't protect the motor. And so what will happen is your motor will pull more voltage than what's really allowed, and it'll heat up that wire, get the wire really hot, and then the wire will actually burn up and melt. Your breaker protects that. Having an easy way to reset that is really important so you don't get frustrated one day and throw an oversized fuse in there just to get through the day. But it's just a good system that works really well. And that's number 10 for this boat of really what lands all these unique things that's really unique to a 22-foot ocean going or bigger water boat. This is an 84-inch bottom ProFish. Hopefully I've highlighted a lot of things that makes this boat unique. If you watch a lot of our videos, you're gonna see a lot of the same content about what makes these boats unique, because guess what? We don't skimp. Our 21-foot boat does the same stuff our 30-footer. We talk about that manifold system. It's on our 30-foot offshore. We talk about that standpipe, welded through holes. That's on the 21-footer, no differently than that's on a 30-foot offshore. If I built a 35 by 11.6 pilot house boat custom for somebody, guess what? I'm doing a manifold system, and I'm doing that same welded standpipe, and I'm gonna be using the same battery management system. And so all of these attributes are really saying how good can we make it? Can we really achieve the best quality possible? And we're giving you the best boat we can bring to the market that's gonna last you a long, long time. If you have any questions, jump on, watch all of our videos, reach out to us on the website, through the YouTube comments if you're watching this on YouTube, or give us a shout anytime. If you're at a show, go talk to a sales guy or anybody at the shop that can give you any answers. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to scan the QR code or watch this video, and keep checking back. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, and thank you for your time.